December 8, 2004 marked one of the, thankfully, few occasions where a musician was killed in the middle of performing on stage. Some people thought it was a joke, some people tried to intervene, and the combination of a gunman and a crowded concert caused one of the most chaotic and tragic events in music history. Pantera was a metal band that consisted of the brothers Dimebag Darrell Abbott and Vinnie Paul Abbott, who are probably the most famous siblings in heavy metal. Famously, in 1989, Dimebag was offered to join the band Megadeth, but refused this opportunity when they would not bring on his brother Vinnie on board too. Pantera and the Abbott brothers would play different variations of metal and enjoy over 2 decades of success within the metal scene and beyond. Their 1994 album Far Beyond Driven reached #1 on the US albums charts as well. However, in the early 2000s, Pantera broke up under acrimonious circumstances, and addiction issues facing the lead singer Phil Anselmo was believed to be the main factor in this breakup. So, the Abbott brothers went on to form a different band called Damageplan. In early 2004, they released an album called Newfound Power and started touring after its release. They spent most of that year touring around the United States, culminating in their December 8th gig at the Alrosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. The band were no longer at the dizzying heights of Pantera's peak and only sold 250 tickets within a 600-capacity venue. Some local bands were playing beforehand, and it wasn't until roughly 10:15 p.m. that Damageplan took the stage. Metal concerts are known for their chaotic atmosphere, so it wouldn't be too unusual to see a fan make his way onto the stage, and shortly into the set, a fan was standing up alongside the band. However, he was holding a gun. This gunman had run past other members of Damageplan and shot Dimebag Darrell at close range. Darrell was shot several times. The chilling part of this is that some fans thought this was a prank or gimmick. People were apparently pumping their fists and thinking it was a hoax. Others who had not seen what happened thought that fireworks had gone off on stage. Someone called 911 and said, "I heard quite a few gunshots and I think somebody in the band definitely has been shot." The UFC fighter Matt Brown was actually an audience member on that night. In an interview with Fox, he said, "All of a sudden the guitar started messing up and the song started fading. I saw Vinnie Paul stopping and putting his sticks out. I looked over. I saw everybody looking over towards Dimebag. Dimebag was on the ground. I hadn't heard any shouts, but I saw some blood and I thought he'd been stabbed." Matt went on to say, "We rushed the stage. Come on, let's get this dude. About that time, a security guard knocked me over and a guy started shooting everyone in the crowd. I started to run away. There was a big pillar and I got behind it." After shooting Dimebag, the gunman shot the band's tour manager, Chris Paluska. Nathan Bray, a fan who jumped on stage to try and resuscitate Dimebag, was also shot. The band's bodyguard, Jeffrey Thompson, bravely attacked the gunman and engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Crucially, this allowed the other members of Damageplan to escape. In the ongoing struggle, the gunman managed to retrieve his gun and fired at Thompson, resulting in shooting number 4. The group's roadie, Aaron Hulk, tried to disarm the gunman when he was reloading. He was an ex-Marine, so had training in combat situations. The problem was that the gunman was also ex-military, and he managed to shoot Aaron, resulting in a 5th shooting. Travis Burnett, a road crew member for another band, then took it upon himself to disarm the gunman and had a bullet graze his left forearm. After this, he ran away. The level of bravery within the people in the room that night was truly incredible. One fan who jumped on stage to save a bleeding victim said, "I have no clue why I jumped up there. I wasn't thinking anything. I just did it." Drum technician John Cat Brooks was also one of the people that attacked the gunman. He was shot in the leg, and instead of being killed, the gunman took him as hostage. In the meantime, Dimebag was pulled off stage by a fan named Billy Clark, who said, "We've got to get him out of here. He's still a target." I'm not sure if the soldier in me took over. He was up there bleeding and needed help. Mindy Reese, who was a registered nurse, also stayed behind. She told Rolling Stone magazine, "I said, F this, I'm a nurse. He needs help. I did chest compressions for 15 to 20 minutes. I kept saying, Dimebag, come on, please, stay with me." The bodyguard, who is now lying to the left off the stage, was also discreetly being resuscitated by fans. While the gunman may make you lose your faith in humanity, the people staying behind should make you think otherwise. The police, who had been called earlier, were now coming in through the back. James Nigmeyer noticed that the gunman had taken Brooks as a hostage and was holding him over himself. It's unclear how much of a risk he was taking, but he took aim at the gunman from 20 feet away. The final person to get shot that night was the gunman. When he was searched by the police, the gunman had another 30 rounds of ammunition left, but Dimebag would not survive that night. In total, 4 people were killed by the gunman and 3 were injured. Roadie Aaron Hawk, fan Nathan Bray, and bodyguard Jeff Thompson were the other casualties alongside Dimebag. The gunman also died. The biggest question on everyone's mind now was, why? It was revealed that the killer's name was Nathan Gale, and like everyone else in the crowd that night, he was a fan. A Rolling Stone article wrote, Gale was reportedly upset that Pantera had broken up last year and may have blamed Abbott for the band's acrimonious split. There was nothing about Gray's background that suggested anything other than he was a crazed fan who suffered from mental health issues. He was a construction worker from Marysville, Ohio. He had formerly served in the military and at the time of his killing was working in an oil change shop. His criminal history was minimal. On November 17th at 3:20 a.m., police arrested Gale for driving with a suspended license. Bizarrely, after this arrest, his friends noticed a sudden change. He was now talking and laughing to himself. He also told a friend that Pantera had stolen his songs and that he was going to sue them. He also regularly attended a tattoo parlor across from his house to get tattoos and piercings. A tattoo artist in the store remarked, "I tried to keep him away from the clientele. He kinda gave everyone a weird impression." In fact, before the gig, he arrived at this very tattoo parlor. He comes in here and likes to hang out when he's not wanted. The most pointless conversations. While these accounts might paint him as the typical loner behind many shootings, this was not the full picture. He played offensive line for the semi-pro Lima Thunder football team and reportedly had some, but not many friends. His football coach told the New York Times, "He was just talking about football coming up. He said, 'I'll see you next week, coach.'" He traveled alone to this gig, and during one of the opening acts, another fan remembers having a conversation with him, where he said, "Hey man, why aren't you watching the show?" The fan asked him. "I don't want to see no shitty local bands," he said. "You can at least go inside and stay warm." "No man," Gale said. "I'm gonna wait for Damage Plan." Club manager Ricky Cautel remembers him hanging around outside, said, "He was just a crazy fan trying to talk to members of the band. One of my guys who helps to set up the bands eventually told him to leave." When Damage Plan started, Dale jumped over a 6-foot fence and went in through a side door. Billy Payne, who was performing with another band that night, said, "The dude was way determined. He was on a mission. He looked angry. He was walking like he was going into battle." Dale is believed to have said something to Dimebag before shooting. However, it's not completely clear what happened. Joe Dameron, a bass player for another band on that night, said, "With the feedback, I didn't hear what he said. I saw him open his mouth to yell something, but I don't know what it was. He just looked determined." And Dimebag Darrell, maybe as a small silver lining, had no idea that someone was trying to shoot him. Aaron Benner, a fan who was standing nearby, said, "Dime was doing his thing. He gets really into it, so he was blindsided." Like the murder of many musicians, some conspiracy theories have ruminated, but nothing quite tangible. One particular coincidence is that he was killed on December 8th, the very same date that John Lennon was shot dead. There were disturbing parallels in that this was another mentally ill fan pulling a gun on one of their supposed heroes. Much has also been made of his military background and how he may have been brainwashed during this time. For privacy reasons, the Pentagon won't release the reasons as to why he was discharged, and much has also been made about his falling out with Phil Anselmo. However, there's no evidence connecting him with this event. Because of the bad blood between them, Dimebag's family requested that Anselmo didn't attend the funeral, and he honored their wishes. With the murder of Dimebag Darrell, it's best to apply the philosophical rule known as Occam's razor. It basically says that the simplest explanation is probably the likeliest. And perhaps instead of looking into the murder, focus should shift to the people in the crowd who tried to disarm the gunman and attend to the victims. The gunman had another 30 rounds of ammunition with him, so they unquestionably made a sacrifice that saved people's lives. Make sure to subscribe for more.